care, we're good.
All right, it's 1:50 in the afternoon. It's still September 10th. We're on our second break and we're back in negotiation session between District 3 and Fort Myers Beach.
Okay, so just bringing back the changes for an 8.2, class action grievance. Must include the following. We have a list of aggrieved employees, signature of the DVP and local 1826, full statement of grievance, facts, dates, times, violations, and remedies. And then that's all that's changed on the front from the last one, yes. Oh, let me see. All grievances must be in writing to include the following. Under C, it's individual grievances will include signature of aggrieved employee and date signed.
Okay. So in the top section, you put individual grievances is the change there.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. 8.1 was okay as written? right?
Yes, 8.1 was
I'm good
fine.
with the first page.
Second page, we did not change. No, second page. we-
On the second page, we did have
Page
changes,
six,
but
step
it
four.
matched,
Yeah, they're the same.
it matched what they proposed.
Okay, 8.6, step 4, you changed 20 days from
Oh,
business days
Oh,
to
from
15.
15, sorry, yes.
Okay.
So 3 weeks.
Okay.
We under.
Did you have any conversations about step 3 and putting a second timeline in for class action?
No, we did
Forgot
not.
about that one.
That's okay, but I mean,
Well, my thought was with increasing from the original 10 that we proposed, I know you wanted 20, but meeting in the middle
Yeah.
of 15, that gave that 3-week period.
but I mean for the,
That's step
that's step 4. So we had talked about in step 3, right now, it's only 10 days, but if it's a class action and there's multiple people to talk with, should there be a second timeline in there for class actions? So if we can do 15 on step 4, do we do 15 for class actions on step 3?
I think we found that.
Yeah, we,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we found that.
And then that's-
And everything else
Yep,
is
everything else.
same as we proposed?
Yes.
Okay. You guys are good. Rather than making the changes, I'll make the changes and we'll bring it back for next meeting. We'll have a clean copy to sign.
Sounds good.
All right. Good deal.
Yeah, 14 weeks, yeah, 13 days. You have to wait on that one. Yeah. Yeah, so 13 and 14 we're holding off on for now.
Okay.
Moving on to 15.
Any discussion on those? Or just, you're going to go back and work on something?
Yeah, we'll go, because, well, 13 has references in the pay, because
Okay.
it's a reduction in references and steps, we can't go over that.
Yeah.
And 14, we're going to go back and have more discussion.
Okay.
Fifteen in your proposal,
Mhm.
I think it was just basically because we agreed upon it, I guess.
Yeah,
The 15.9
9.
in ours was struck out. It wasn't in yours at all.
Yeah,
So I thought it assumed it was just because we agreed upon it before.
okay.
I didn't take it as a return, but that was that. And then.
Then 15.10, we have we have put back in the, or repairs, I'll make sure it's still here. Yes, with the repairs, which require special licensure equipment, certification shall not fall within the responsibilities of employees, and just struck the last, however, tasks that fall within the scope of a member's job description expected to be performed on emergency incidents are also expected to be completed in the course of maintaining the district's assets. I think we pretty much covering maintaining, district assets with the cleaning, the mowing responsibility, things like that. I don't believe that needs to be, we need to have that verbiage in there. 16, was it? Hold off. Yes. Yeah, that's the insurance, so that's a hold off on 16. Because it affects wages, so. 16, so just moving on to 17. And essentially in 17, all we did was strike the 9 months to make it an even 12 months. To make it go across in 17.6. And then everything else was fine in 17.
Let me, we were talking about it a little bit on break with 17.
Okay.
Where would your head be if short-term disability was 6 months and then long-term kicked in, rather than long-term kicking in at 9 months?
So what happens under long-term? What changes for the
I think
employee?
the benefits change a bit.
The benefits do, yeah.
Do you know the details?
Pull that down, I'll look it up.
I know that when we had somebody go off and there was an issue with maintaining their job after 9 months.
Yeah.
You know, and we just had, so I was like, I just want to make sure that if workers' comp, everything is 12 months, I don't see why holding them for 12 months is a bad thing, if that's what we're saying.
And that's what I'm saying. If both of them were 12 months, but a short-term, but an off-the-job injury moved from short-term to long-term at 6 months rather than 9, would that be a good intermediate?
It would depend on the benefits that they're receiving.
Okay.
Are they losing pay? Are they losing things at 9 months? What is actually going on with the employee at that time?
Okay.
It goes to 66, or 60%.
From the
From
66?
the 70.
Well, we're at 75 because it's 66 and 2/3, and the district makes up the rest.
Or the rest, yeah.
But is it 60 with us making up a
Well,
portion of it
that's,
right now?
no, because
It's just straight 60.
Because
and then they
once
have
somebody
to
goes
pay.
on the long term, they're normally separated.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't think we've had anybody go on long term.
No, but it came close.
Other than,
Came close, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's where the talks came up, is if they're going to be separated, but I don't want anybody separated from the district who plan on coming back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just because they have a long recovery time doesn't mean they're not valuable to the district after.
And if they went on long-term at 6 months, it wouldn't be my intent that they would be terminated at the 6-month mark and here's your long-term and go away. It would be that they're on for 12 months either way.
Right, but they're losing 15% of their pay at that
It
point.
would adjust their benefits. Yeah. And this is only for off-duty.
Right.
So, give it some thought. I don't think we're going to solve it today, but
Okay.
18 holding as paid.
Okay, we're holding 18, has to do with pay.
What's that?
Is it 19?
19,
19 we're holding. The health and safety.
20.
Basically, we're going right to 24.
going to 24?
Yeah. We're holding all others for now.
Got it. 24 we're holding.
And then 27, 28, they're being held.
Okay.
So in 24.3,
Mhm.
the FMB members do not possess educational requirements. We changed it from 90 days to 180 days for the start examination for their education.
All right, hold on a second.
That's for tier 2 candidates.
Members who do not have the required requirements to tax. Okay.
Yeah. Just give them some time to get into those classes. Variability of them,
Mhm.
you know, depending on what the classes are, could be some limitations to get into. We just think 3 months is kind of,
Okay.
it's opening up to 6 months for that one.
All right.
We struck C for two-tiered company officer promotion. The district may include external candidates.
Mhm.
There is an ability to, for that later you'll see, yeah, moving down. So under, it goes A, if after two-tiered examination is completed and no candidate has been successful or vacancies still exist, the district may include external candidates who meet all the parameters of the job description for the rank being tested. Internal candidates are eligible to be retested. So basically, it's saying you'll have if you have to have a 2-tier test, you'll have the 2-tier test first.
Okay.
And then if you need another tier for external, then you can have that other tier, but the 2-tier candidates are still able to retest.
Okay.
Approved. And then 24.6, we dropped the minimum passing from an 80 to a 70. It seems to be the standard
Uh-huh.
for everything else, so, and then that's the last change we have on that. Do you have any questions, or?
No, so if a candidate isn't successful, if they fail the test, they can turn around and immediately take it again.
They can retest when you're testing
Your tier 2.
your other tier, your external. So basically what we're saying is you have a tier 1, tier 2. If you meet tier 1 but you don't have enough for tier 1 test, you hold a tier 2 test, all
Right.
internal candidates.
Mhm.
If somebody fails that test, when you open up to the outside, they have the ability to test also.
Okay.
So essentially
So
the
where we
first-
stand right now, we have the firefighters working on task books for officer,
Yes.
but they're not ready. And so 180 days, we think that this is going to give us more candidates. Because we're short right now. We don't have enough people to promote to officer when we do the station.
And it allows those individuals that particular time to get those certifications that
Okay.
that are needed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I understand what you're doing.
Because also, we want to
No,
promote
here-
within Holston, right?
Here's where my head is that I'm not sure that what you've proposed here isn't bad. So if I test all my tier 1 and tier 2 candidates, my only hesitation is if I'm testing external candidates, they're already going to be promoted officers. So it could be a different test, more like we do when we hire administrative officers, unless I'm retesting the guys who just failed. So my hesitation, as I'm reading through this, is retesting the internal candidates who just failed. That's my hesitation.
What do you mean it's going to be a different test?
Well, my internal candidates, I'm testing them to all the policies and procedures internally and whatnot, but if I'm doing an external candidate who's already an officer, I'm not, maybe not as concerned about testing their knowledge as an officer, because they're already there, versus the internals who've never been tested and passed an examination.
But you want to
The
know-
external candidates will already be promoted officers at some other career department.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know,
No, that's what it would be.
I hear you,
Yeah.
but just because you're an officer at one department, don't mean you're an officer at,
True.
you know,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, so that's, and plus you want them to know
I guess my point is if
Fort
I'm
Myers Beach
testing,
way of doing things rather than just knowing.
right, but if I have to go outside and I'm only looking at promoted officers in career departments, I may want to fashion a different test than the one I'm giving to my internal candidate
Well, it's not-
who hasn't yet promoted to officer anywhere. That's all I'm saying. So
But
that's my only hesitation.
It don't have to be the
way-
exact same test, but they're still eligible to participate in that test
Yeah.
and given the material for that test, right?
Well,
That's what you're saying?
My hesitation is, yes, if somebody just failed the test, I'm probably not prepared to retest them, and just keep giving it to them until they pass.
But I understand it not being the exact same test. I think we can all agree on that. We're not going to give you the same outline of a test.
Yeah,
I think we can agree on that. Now that you know everything, here you go, pass the test.
yeah.
Well, I think the distinction maybe that is, so with internal candidates, they'd be tested against internal policies, where an external candidate would not. I would not reasonably give somebody from North Florida 180 days, or 60 to 90 days, or 60 to 120 days, or SOPs, SOGs, and expect them to be able to.
So you're going to give them some tactics, right?
Yeah, it would be different, right, it just wouldn't include probably internal materials. It would be stuff that would quantify as minimum standards. If you were to measure it up against, say, like the fire colleges, JPRs, and task books, something that every officer throughout the state
But as long as
is
those,
expected to know.
I think as long as those internal candidates still have the material that they have to study, what's the
But I
difference?
guess, so here's my point, is that, you know, let's say, I'll use Billy for example, just for example. But he, you know, we had internal policies and stuff on the test, and he didn't pass the test. Now, if I'm gonna give an external test, do I give him a different test than the external candidates?
What I'm saying is no. Whatever test you're giving the external candidates,
Mhm.
he can have that same test. He just got to prepare the same way as the external candidates.
Okay.
And then once you bring in that external candidate, there's a probationary period for both of those employees.
Right.
Obviously, Billy would have had some deficiencies in knowing some of the internal stuff.
Mhm.
While this new person from the outside is going to have none of that knowledge to begin with.
Mhm.
So either way, either candidate that gets it would have a few
Right.
month span to get on top of it and pass their probationary time. So you'd still have that checks and balances that you need on the back end.
So
Okay.
I totally agree that you're not going to give him the exact same test. We agree,
Yeah.
or the form, whatever. As long as he have the ability, whatever test you're going to give,
Right.
to study for that particular type of test.
So my question is, if you have an individual who wants to take the officer test for the first time, and on the test they're getting leadership books and officer books,
Mhm.
is that not going to be the same type of books that are given to the external candidates?
I think it could depend on the qualifications that we put for the external posting. So for example, if I put external posting and they have to be, where internally you might have to be an officer 1, external candidates have to be officer 2. And maybe external candidates have to have additional requirements, instructor 3. Who knows what it's going to be, but if it's a
Right.
different standard and they're qualified to take the test, then do I still need to test them on the same books? I can't say it would be the same books.
Right.
Because I'm looking at a different, I'm looking at somebody who, if we do it right, we're looking at people who have already been vetted to some degree because they passed promotional tests, they've been promoted, they have time and seat, they're past their probationary period wherever they worked, you know, so they have some tenure in that role.
Right.
That, to me, is a different test than somebody who's testing for the first time for the position.
No, I understand that. I'm just thinking that if somebody fails a test because they don't memorize a book written by some other leader, there's some other captain from some other department,
Yeah.
and that's the reason why they're failing, not because they can't do the tactics or know our SOPs and SOGs, I don't think that's correct. I think that I can't memorize a book that I had 6 months to read and study and memorize what this person's idea of tactics are,
Yeah.
even though they don't follow in line with our tactics.
Mhm.
And then an external candidate comes in, and you might not know what kind of test they've taken. They might never have even read that book, but we're going to hold our employees to a higher standard that they have to read this book and memorize these things, but other people that are coming in, they don't have to have this book, they don't have to have that knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think we need to hold them to the same standard.
I agree, but
Yeah.
the standard, the distinction in the standard would not be the external reading list, so to speak, it would be the internal policies. That would be the distinction. So you take John Norman's book, you take Handbook of Company Officer Tactics. Whether it's somebody testing from North Florida or here, I agree, they would read the same book, right? They would read the same book, because
Right.
it's universal knowledge. But if we have somebody external, you wouldn't create a test that has internal documents. You know, what is the proper hair length above the collar, according to SOP 1234?
But wouldn't you
You know
want
what I
them to
mean?
know that stuff, though?
Would it be reasonable to assume that they would know that before they're an employee of the district?
No, but then you're providing them the material too, right?
That could come under their orientation.
Yeah, and those are things, to
Not
your
as
point,
worried
we would
about
catch
that.
in probation, like, okay, look,
Mhm.
you obviously know how to run a truck, or you've illustrated that you can run a truck, you can run a company, you can run a crew, like, so where they're not spending a lot of time developing or refining tactics, their job when they orient is to refine their internal understanding of policy. It's just a shift in priorities, what they do in that first year. But
I
it just,
understand what you're saying.
Okay. Right.
I think we're close on that.
Yeah, I do too. All right, and then 27 and 28 are,
Yeah,
all right.
they reference other articles and things, so we have to.
can we talk about 24.3? I have a question before we move on. Just 24.3B, the 180 days. These members shall be required to prove that all educational parameters can be met within 180 days of the start of the exam. So if we have like is that specific to the sit down, take the written test day 1 of the assessment center?
To the date of the exam. So the written exam.
So they've got 6 months after we start the assessment center, the testing, to finish whatever classes they need required in the job description.
Right.
6 months. I'm just trying to figure out how
And
that
it says-
works with the next part of the timeline to, we have to post for like 30 days. It's like between 60 and 120 days to finish, to do the testing. So I'm trying to think realistically, if I have to have a do-over, a second test, how long would that take? 180 days would not impact the timeline of posting and all that other stuff. They shouldn't overlap.
What do you mean, if you're trying to do external candidates now?
No, if I have to do a second test. I'm just saying, if I had to do a second test, this 180 days is not tied to the timeline for posting.
No.
No.
That's all,
I'm just making sure.
Understood.
I think don't we say in here that they can't promote until they're fully qualified? They can be on the list, but they can't promote.
I don't believe so.
That might be District 15.
Yeah, I don't believe we have that in
Yeah,
there.
that's what Tim was on.
So does 24.4, the last sentence, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Intended to test for promotion under this section shall be entitled to promote until the educational requirements of the job description are fully satisfied.
So they can get on the list.
They get on the list, but they
have
can't
to
actually.
finish, yeah, so they would have to, in that 180, would have to finish out all their requirements.
Right, before they actually tag on to their.
Before they could promote.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. Whew. So I believe my version is substantially the same. You guys didn't present anything on PPO, I don't think.
Yes.
You did? No, you
Do we
did.
not present, no?
Yes, no?
No.
Do we write one not present?
We did.
We did on June 20th.
Oh, you did? Yeah, it proposed a bunch of extra hours.
Not today.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, I do have it in front of me. I'm sorry. Are you ready?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so you guys had proposed additional hours for both shift employees and non-shift employees, and we can't accept that, so our counter is as written. And 9.4, I'll tell you what, why don't you walk me through your changes rather than me? Ours is basically, with the exception of 9.5, where that date was, where that language, I agree with striking it because it was in reference to implementing the new
Yeah, it
bid
was
system.
history.
Yeah, so that could come out. But other than that, I've held the same, so if you will, walk me through your thoughts on PPO. if you
So,
would.
well, the original was to add some hours to each individual's monthly accrual,
Mhm.
which would then allow them to hold more at the end per year.
Hold more at the end.
Well, basically, because your annual accrual is your monthly for the year.
Okay,
So by increasing the monthly, it increases the annual.
okay.
So, and then in 9.4, We have, so instead of forfeiting at the end of the year, it's paid out to the employee's base current hourly rate. Payment will occur the following pay period after anniversary month. So instead of losing your PPO, if they don't use it all, they would actually be able to sell it back, essentially. There was notes made about up to how many hours, things like that, but that's the original proposal. 9.6, we struck the language.
Also,
about-
that helps with some of your, as you're saying, people being here. So
Mhm.
if you don't use it, you being able to sell it back, does have some kind of value to actually having people here, actually, and having issues with.
9.6 was cleanup on the timeframe.
Right.
And then any PPL, pre-approved PPL request will be honored for employees who receive a shift change for any reason if two other District 3 personnel are already approved for PPL. So basically, if you get shift changed, you're not losing your already scheduled day. If you're scheduled off and you get shift change, you still get your day.
So we do that now. What you struck is if somebody is promoted.
If they're promoted, so that's gone. Yes,
Okay. So that's the big change.
right.
Person has a promotion and they're moved to another shift.
Yes, and the rest of that, that section 9.5 or 9.6
Yeah.
is struck down until scheduled PPL. Let's see, we still have the 12-hour, 8-hour, 4-hour increments. The district agrees to allow one life safety specialist on PPL for any given workday. We struck as little as 4 hours
Mhm.
increments down to 1 hour. Basically, that is if they have to go to a dentist appointment, they have an appointment to go, they only have to be out for, an hour or two.
Okay, so the way it reads right now, because I think when Jen was here, we talked about this, it's as little as 4-hour increments for educational classes.
Yes, and it's one.
And it already is 1 hour for, at the beginning or the end of their shift,
Right,
for the things like doctor's appointments and whatnot.
right, but if they don't have the doctor's appointment at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they have one at noon,
Mhm.
and it's up the road, they can go to the doctor's appointment for an hour, or take a 2-hour PPL, run up to the doctor's appointment, come right back to work.
Okay.
That's still 1 hour, the reason of the change. It just, basically, it doesn't limit them to the 1 hour being right at the beginning of shift or right at the end. If they're starting their shift at 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
there's not a doctor's office, it's really open at 7 or 8 in the morning, they don't open until 9 most of the time. Well, some open at 8 again, but good luck getting in that one with the season.
There's plenty of.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
not during the season, but you're not getting in.
Okay.
But anyway, so, let's see, 9.7. A minimum 12 hours a shift, or the entire shift. 9.7 is the first 12 hours, I don't understand, we'll just keep it as it was. We had struck the 96 hours of UPPL with the payback. Let's see. We struck when the supervisor receives information of subordinate employee cannot perform the duties, responsibilities defined in their job description. That's written in other places. It's health and safety already, so I don't know why it's in 9.8.
I actually had notes, is this covered somewhere else? Trying to figure out
Yeah.
why it was struck.
Yeah, it's in health and safety, I think.
Right.
9.10, employees shall not schedule any type of PPL if doing so causes negative balance in their PPL bank. So the district will not compensate employees for PPL hours in excess of their earned accrual. That's struck because of the holdover at the end of the year, their anniversary, they hold their hours past.
I think the intent of this, though, is that they can't be compensated if they run out of hours. But I'm going to accrue next month. Well, you're out right now. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that you wouldn't be able to get paid because you're going to get an accrual in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but if you're out, you're out. There's no.
Well, that's the point. That's the point of that sentence, I believe.
There's nothing to compensate you for, right?
And that's the point of the sentence, is you won't be in excess of your earned accrual. So if you've used everything, you can't get compensated for hours you don't yet have.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
We struck the 90-day look back
Okay.
for the $500 payback at the end of retirement.
Mhm.
Then again, it's written in option 2.
Okay. So there was a lot of conversation on this with District 15. I believe we cut it from 15
Yes, that's where it
last
came
time
from.
around.
Mhm.
And so the 90-day look-back period is, and I got to try and remember all the nuances of our conversations, when an employee is coming up on to drop, and they want to cash out 500 hours, they can come into, potentially could come into their anniversary with almost 2 years of PPL, right? And I believe, so the state looks at it and says it can't be charged, they can't no more than
No
500.
more than 500.
500 hours?
But they
Right.
can take the rest into the drop or whatever it is that they're.
I might have to go back to the tapes, because there was specific reason for the look-back period.
Yeah, I know it can't be no more than 500.
Yeah,
I
when
agree with that.
we played out in depth, we played out the scenarios to make sure we got this language right. So I might have to go back and look at, remember the reasoning on it. But there's a reason it's there, so I've kept it in my proposal. So.
Okay.
And then last page.
Okay. The last page, we struck 915, employees approved to schedule PPL during the selection process can cancel PPL, can only cancel PPL 30 days prior to the following holidays.
Mhm.
Honestly, we struck them if we have plans to go somewhere for, say, Christmas, and your plans get changed and canceled, why would you not be able to cancel the time to give it to somebody else? To allow
I'm
somebody else
somewhat,
some time off?
I'm somewhat indifferent to this language, as far as it being struck or being there. It was my understanding that wasn't there a reason for this that was actually brought forward by the union?
There was, that's why it was put in years ago.
Okay.
But I don't believe we have that issue that we had,
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Do you know what it was?
Basically, people would tie up PPL, and then they would try and cancel it just to avoid.
Just to screw with
Just to
somebody?
keep others from taking PPL.
Seriously?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
it's not that type of environment,
Yeah.
you know.
Plus, I think you want to have as many people here as you can.
Yeah.
As you state, especially during those holidays.
Yeah,
like you said.
I didn't, you know, that's why I said, I'm indifferent to that.
Yeah.
On the page before, to be eligible for any lump sum payout at the time of drop, the employee must submit by June 1st. The reason for that was to be able to budget properly
Right.
for these large payouts. Are you adamant about that, or?
Well, that
flexible on
was,
it?
so I guess Jen had, how do you know you're in the drop? Like how,
It
Well-
could potentially limit when somebody can make that decision, because if they don't know prior to June 1st that they want to go December,
Yeah,
now they make the decision in October, it's too late, they missed their deadline. They either have to wait
To the next
till
June.
the following year,
yeah.
or they just got screwed themselves.
Yeah, we had this language in there for, since I was here in 2006 up until, I don't remember when it came out, but really, so what everybody did was if they thought that they were gonna be near the drop, or they might consider the drop, they just turned in the paperwork, whether they got paid or not, you know, whether they actually went in the drop was a whole different story. But at least if we, either that or we're gonna have to look and see how many people are eligible to go on the drop, and then try and budget for eligibility, which will increase the budgeted wage number.
so this doesn't tie them to actually going into the drop?
No, it just allows us, it's for budgetary purposes. I thought it said that, but maybe it doesn't.
And then if they do it once and they don't go to the drop, and they do it an entire another year, do they have to do it again for the
Yeah, do it
following
every
year?
year.
Yeah, the intent is for us to
Yeah.
be able to budget the funds.
It's
Right.
kind of like education.
But
you know?
but I'm saying if I did it, so I had you budgeted this year,
Mhm.
but I don't go to the drop. So next year, it was already budgeted. It should still be there.
It would be a carryover, but it'll be in the budget. We wouldn't take it out
Right.
if you
Every-
submit the form again.
Yeah, every budget year stands
Yeah.
on its own.
Right.
Yeah, so basically, I guess there's no harm, well, we're allocating funds to a purpose in the
Mhm.
budget. But
maybe we can
that's not
structure-
that big a deal for the amount of people that might be eligible to drop.
Then
So-
maybe we can structure the form where it would just automatically carry over until used or something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's why I say the alternative is for me to look at everybody that's eligible for the drop and assume a $500
I think-
500-hour payout.
I think we can,
Yeah.
once you submit it to once, if they didn't go, then the carryover. I
Mhm.
think probably-
Okay.
All right.
Comfortable with that idea? Questions online?
No.
The pay order.
This should be quick.
This is a sea of red, so, but only because we're changing it. Proposing to change it.
The big stack. It's a lot of red.
It's a lot of red. I do have 8 clean copies, 2 clean copies.
You only did that so I have to change my pen color. Got nothing?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you gotta cut pieces of pizza. I'm sure you did.
Oh, let me look at it. There is a clean copy if it makes it easier. All right. On the pay plan, what I'd like to do on the pay plan is restructure it a bit. I'll put it up on the screen. So the new pay plan that I'm proposing is to account for cumulative experience to start with. So basically 1 rate of pay per rank. And then each individual will be assessed on their individual contributions beyond that rank. So on the board, if you will, is a spreadsheet. So basically, what I'm looking to do is take each person's experience, their education and certifications, which will be degrees and certifications, rather than right now our step plan has if you get some classes. What I'm looking to do is for the person who takes the classes and finishes out the certification that the classes are tied to, a certification is the trigger for them to receive. So let me just show you here. So here are the different certifications that are included in our proposal. Starts with pump operator credential. That's Fire Officer 1, Fire Officer 2, Instructor 1, Instructor 2, 300, 400. The acting engineer credential, acting officer credential, acting VC credential, the 2 degrees, the Florida safety officer credential, live fire instructor, adjunct, inspector, and then the EMS coordinator credential, which we'll talk about. These are all driven as a percentage of the firefighter rate, okay? So these will change each year as we adjust the CPI. What this does is it puts a value to each person's individual education. And that's carried over into the main plan. So how I started doing this plan was plugging in everybody's education, obviously, their current rank, and then over here, when I say cumulative experience, I'll show you what that looks like. So one of the things with experience that I think is important is when you have longevity and you just have X percentage per year or whatever, I don't think it accounts for the way people advance as much as this will. So we know that when somebody goes into a new role, they're basically soaking up information, they're learning, practicing, and stuff like that, and then they, over time, they get settled into that role. Okay, so if you're a firefighter over time, you're going to have that early learning curve, but then you're going to flatten out as far as what each new day of experience means to you. Okay, And then as you promote, you would then have the same benefit of that rapid growth early, and you would then again level out and carrying that same into each of these. Now, why are the curves different? The curves are different because when I tried to take these parameters and plug everybody into where they currently are, it was a huge shell game. Okay. So the yellow tabs represent getting everybody into the new plan versus where they are today. And ultimately how this all culminates, let me show you just so you can see how the sausage is made. This is showing you the cumulative experience. So here are the years that somebody spent as a firefighter. So if you're an officer, your officer date is here, I'm sorry, your hire date is here, the date you promoted to engineer is in here, and the date you promoted to officer is in here. So that we're able to give you that growth curve through each of your ranks as you have gone through your career. Okay? So for example, years as a firefighter, Todd, I'll take you. You spent a little over 6 years as a firefighter,
Yeah, 6.5.
and then almost the same amount of time as an engineer. Okay. So you had the value of that growth, that early curve in each of those positions, and then you moved into officer, where you've been an officer for 6 years. Okay. So these numbers all work out to come up with a cumulative experience value of 30% for you.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on the experience part of this?
Not yet.
Anybody else? Knows a lot of.
Is there a value to each year of service?
The percentage is applied to the rate, to your rate. So there's only one pay rate for the company
I
officer.
understand that, but where'd you get the percentage?
So
Like-
look on this page.
Oh, so in Todd's, for example? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so it says a cumulative 30%.
Correct. So that's 7 years, 6.74 years of experience over on the firefighter.
And then what's the,
Average, that became 7%.
okay,
Or 7.5, I think it rounds up, so I think it's 7.5% of your 30% is attributed to your experience as a firefighter.
and is that based on the firefighter rate for that percentage, or is it all based on?
No,
the
it's all
same-
based on your current rate.
Okay.
It's all based on your current rate. Okay? And then same thing here, that same 7 years, either 6 or 7, so 12 or 12.5%
Okay.
over here. This is probably not how I would have built the growth curve if we were building a new department, but these are the curves that allowed me to plug everybody in as close to where they currently are.
Right.
So I'll go back and show you the 4 examples. So here on the current rank, what you'll see is we maintain a recruit rank, and then we have firefighter, engineer, lieutenant, captain. So there's a single dollar amount for each one of these ranks. Your individual time in the rank plus the education that you bring to the job are what determine your individual value and your final dollar amount. Okay, and a single rate for life safety as well. I'm gonna hide these just for the sake of. Okay, so the yellow columns are the columns that everybody's probably going to be interested in. And what you will see is the proposed, what these yellow tabs are is getting from our current structure into the new structure. The blue tabs will then be where we go and apply the CPI, okay? So this whole chart is just getting everybody into the new plan.
Okay.
And the intent was, ideally, if this was going to work out, everybody would have been zeroed out. But you're going to see there's some big numbers in here. And so let's take, for example, let's take Hartman and Jensen, right? Hartman is sitting at a $6,700 increase to get him where he should be.
Mhm.
Say, okay, what's that mean, where he should be? So if you look at the two of them, almost identical in years, their cumulative experience is different. Now, the reason it's different is because if you look at Lieutenant Jensen, he had less than a year as a driver engineer before he went to officer. So most of his years were as a firefighter, where Hartman spent a number of years as driver before promoting to officer. But then Jensen makes up for it with more education. So he's experiencing $1.30 more because of his education. So long story short, when you plug them in the new plan, they become very comparable. Now, this would change because we just got that information, and Hartman's actually moving to an LT1, so this number will be substantially less, but nonetheless, they'll both end up here
Right.
at the end of the day, okay? But that's the reason there's a $6,700 change for one person and a $60 change for the other person,
Okay.
okay? And that applies in a couple other places too. So this, basically the cost to make these changes is about $44,000 to our current people. Forget these three numbers, they're just hypotheticals. I put them in there just for my information of a guy that's loaded up. You know, this guy's got almost all the education, and what's it look like? So I was just doing that. So the bottom three numbers don't really come into play.
Okay.
But 43,000 represents everybody but those three. Okay, so we put 43,000 towards getting into the new plan. All right.
Okay.
Then when we get over to the new plan, our proposal is to look back. I talked last time we met, or the first time we met, and said I wanted to focus on, once we have people where they need to be, the focus is making sure their standard of living is maintained. Okay, so looking back 2 years, we, with our 3% cap on our COLA language, we did not, if we would have done a full CPI, it would have been 7.9, but we did 3. Okay, so I'm picking up 4.9 for 2022, and I'm picking up 4.3 for 2023. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm proposing is in year one of picking up the 4.9 and then the current CPI of 3.4 and modifying by 8.3% in year one.
Okay, so everybody's wages multiplied times 8 point,
Yeah.
with 8.3%.
8.3%.
After going into the current.
After going into the current plan,
Okay.
okay? And then in year two, we have this 4.3% plus whatever the CPI will be after we find out in May or June. So in October 1 of '25, we will adjust by the combination of the 4.3 plus whatever this CPI is. And then year three would be just the CPI,
Okay.
okay?
So essentially a COLA increase for the next 3 years to get the,
Well, it's a COLA plus the
Plus the
catch-up
previous
from
COLA,
the
yes.
previous 2 years, that's
Yeah.
correct.
There's a catch-up provision to make the new math work, and the catch-up provision for the goals.
okay.
Okay. So if the COLA in May is 3%, you're looking at 7.3 for year two,
Okay.
and whatever the COLA is in year three.
All right.
All right? Discussion?
Lot to look over.
Yeah.
So let's say those two officers, that one officer that you had,
Mhm.
can I look at what it was to get them there and then what his actual would be in that first year, so.
Sure. Now, keep in mind, we were just talking about this officer. Before the contract is done, he's probably going to and get most of this when he adjusts to LT1 in the current plan. So these differences won't be that extreme. But anyway, 6,700 and, hold on. So in his case, he was gonna go from 115 194.
That's where he's at currently?
Yeah. 131.
Okay.
Before Viva. It's $2,000 either way. I'm sorry, no. Before Viva.
That's including the.
It's all the wages, yes.
Okay.
Are you able to share with us your?
You don't want to do it?
Your head smoking?
He's all right to me too.
Yes. So one of the things with building this plan is being able to, we had to, as we were building the budget, we had to build this plan, to include 3 months of bringing on the other 12 people
Right.
for the current budget. And then part of it is trying to figure out what it's gonna be for next year's budget, having, the full 48 next time we have to go in and do budget.
One question, this October is, come October 1, it's the payout for longevity for this last year. That's still budgeted?
Yes.
Okay.
So experience replaces longevity.
Right.
In the proposal, you'll see that.
Right.
The longevity goes away because it's being picked up in here in the experience.
Right, that's starting on the new one, but I'm
On the
saying
new
for,
one, yeah.
for this year.
Yes.
So come October, we'll get the longevity checks will start coming in for this past year.
23.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. So we'll run through the language.
Yes.
So 22-1, it's me editorializing a bit, I know how Tim loves that. Basically explaining that our first goal here is to develop that long-term strategy for compensating each member, their standard of living. So I pulled the COLA language up because it drives everything else. So I pulled it from further up and put it at the beginning. Therefore, the district will automatically adjust the base wage for the first full pay period following October 1 and then October 1, 2026. You'll see that the 3% cap, the 1% minimum 3% cap is removed. The thing to keep in mind is you do have the potential, and I just want to be clear, that if we go in the negative, that it could affect your pay.
It will.
Now, it will affect your pay.
It will.
But no, we had talked in contracts past about putting language in there that before we would do layoffs, we would agree to, across the board, basically everybody would try and, take a bite of the sandwich together. This does that. Keep that in mind. Okay, so if we do have that downturn in the economy, that now maybe we need language to put a stopgap in there to say that we'll only go negative so far, but this is everybody contributing to everybody keeping their job. So hopefully that mentality is down your alley. We don't want to see anybody lose their job. Okay?
Okay. The 12 months on the CPI,
Mhm.
that's the average in the 12 months?
It's the same language that we have now.
Okay.
Like I said, I just took out the mins and
Yeah,
maxes.
I'm sorry, it does say utilize the average.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then the next part is current language, it's just moved up to 22-1. In the
Mhm.
event of ad valorem being insufficient, then we reopen.
Right.
And again, 2215, we do have to adjust it to read 22-1.
Right.
All right. The second part is just picking up the rank part of the spreadsheet where we have a flat rate. I put the second column in just as an illustrator, but it's percentage over the recruit rate. So each of these rates are built off the first rate and not off of each other. Okay. And then you'll see in.
So so basically your CPI will be adjusted to the recruit rate every year.
Yes.
The The
Yes.
2001?
The 2001, yeah.
Okay, so it's not on.
So, yeah, so up here where you see at the top, I have 18,
Yeah, from between recruiting and firefighters, 15%, that's what he's trying to say, and then he goes 20
Yeah.
and 29%, but that CPI is just applied to that first number,
yeah.
and then you go.
The purpose of this is for us to administer this. It's still the same percentage either way. I've worked it out, and it works out the same. You apply a percent to the recruit rate, it carries through, because you're picking up the percentages and the higher numbers. But the purpose of this is that we can come in, and when we plug in the CPI, it will automatically adjust everybody by changing one number. So when you mess with this, it has all the formulas in the background.
Okay. So by applying the CPI to the recruit rate, you're essentially stating that when you apply to that, all the other numbers will significantly increase by that same percentage because you're picking up the number as you go.
Yeah, it carries through.
Okay.
And you'll see in year 2 and 3 on the rank chart that I can't put numbers in because I don't know what the CPI is yet.
Correct. I got
So
you.
I just wanted to put them in there to,
It'll be a minimum,
Yeah,
of
demonstrate.
minimum of the carryover.
right. And then because of that, the steps are all struck out.
Correct.
The language down below says trainees and all firefighters hired after October 1 will be compensated at the recruit rate until they finish probation. Is that it?
So when we say probation, we're saying
Their year of probation.
within a year of probation?
What's that? It's actually, I think that's wrong.
I would think you would stay there to
Yeah, that's,
the completion of your,
yeah.
we want to say the orientation?
No, the recruit rate is for those non-certified that we put through school.
Okay.
So that's wrong.
Says we complete.
Firefighters will start at the firefighter rate,
Okay.
so. And then the next chart down, 22.3, that is the scaled chart for credentialed paramedics as firefighters versus the other ranks. And that is to pick up the amount of the work that they're doing on the medical calls.
Okay.
Okay? On the next page with the educational enhancements is just putting a chart in of what I showed you on the board.
Mhm.
And I put the percentages next to it. The percentages wouldn't change, but because the dollar amount in year 2 and 3 changes, so at the top in the second column where it says 2302,
Yes.
the rates will change in year 2, so there will be a new chart that we'll have to put in the contract in year 2 and year 3, once we know the CPI.
Okay.
Okay?
So, but you're saying the hourly rate won't change?
The hourly
Or the-
rate will change.
Okay.
Oh, it'll change for the the degrees and certifications,
Because you're
because it's going to change, it's all based off the firefighter rate.
Right, but the percentage rate is staying the same?
Percentages don't change.
I got you, okay.
Yeah, but the dollar amounts will change.
Right.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay.
That was that. Something else to keep in mind is that when you have the acting engineer, so let's say you have the acting engineer credential and you become an engineer, you keep that credential, it doesn't go away because you're a promoted engineer. It's part of your total qualifications that you bring to the job. And it's the same if you promote to officer, there's still going to be the underlying acting engineer credential remains. Okay.
What about those, the acting officer credential?
Mhm.
Are those for all the officers if we didn't have acting officers at the time? Thought we did, though, just making sure.
All the officers have it in the chart.
Okay.
Yeah. At the bottom, EMS shift coordinator, this is where I put in that we're preliminary with this, but one per shift. Okay? So, don't know how that's actually gonna all work out. We've still gotta get that figured out, but that's gotta be a go-to person, or maybe a couple people per shift. But it's gonna have to be some people that are basically coordinating things. Okay? Any questions on that?
No.
Yes, but not now.
Right. Well, like, there's so much, we'll have questions later, after we
So
read
you're
it.
not ready to sign this? Okay. All right. So here on 22.4, basically just putting in writing what we talked about. The hourly rate for each degree and certification is based on a specific percentage of the firefighter rate. It'll be adjusted annually as the CPI is known. 22.4B and C is language that already exists. I just moved it. To be eligible for educational incentives, the degree must be in a field study related to one of these degrees. And then the second part that says, like I said, those two already exist in there. 22.4 Delta is just saying the same thing as A, but for the life safety specialist. Their certifications will be adjusted based on their rate of pay as the CPI changes. Next page is just existing being struck out. 22.5, the next two pages show the charts with the cumulative experience in each of the ranks. First chart's for firefighter, second one for engineer, third one for company officer, and then the last one for the life safety specialist.
Okay.
Okay.
You have for members hired prior career fire EMS experience in district.
Yeah, strike that out for now, please, because I don't know if that's actually going to work after thinking about it. The next sentence says all adjustment for years of service will occur on the first full pay period following October 1. The intent is to not have Jane make experience adjustments every time somebody hits an anniversary date.
Mhm.
So they'll all be adjusted each year one time. Okay. .22.6 is existing language. And that's for the rate of pay per day when somebody actually does the job of acting driver, acting lieutenant, acting captain, or acting VC.
Right.
Okay. Below that, 22.7, which was the longevity chart, that's scratched. The experience is replacing it. The next page, the struck language in green, is the stuff that I moved up. .22.7 is unchanged, other than some spellings. 22.8 is changing the district chief of operations to operations chief. Cleaning that up. 22.9 is new language. Members serving in the National Guard or the Florida Guard shall be granted paid time off for mandatory training and deployments related to a declared state of emergency. It's the way it is now. Members deployed for non-emergency events, which are not affiliated with the declared state of emergency, will not be denied time off, but will be subject to the employee using their PPL first and then being allowed time off without pay once the member's PPL bank is exhausted. We want to support the people. We just had one for the Florida Guard. That was for a swim event in the Keys. I don't think the taxpayers of Fort Myers Beach should be paying.
So what about the regular, their monthly training? Did they go?
That's covered in here.
Okay.
So shall be granted paid time off for mandatory training and deployments,
Okay.
but to deploy the Florida Guard to do a swim event in the Keys, I don't think is on the beach taxpayers.
Right.
You know, it's a voluntary thing, and if, I appreciate you, we support you, but if that's the extent that the deployments are gonna be made for, we're gonna have to put some stopgaps in, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay. Employees are responsible for submitting completed degrees. These are just changes to the new terminology.
Right.
Employees are responsible for initiating submitted completed degrees and certifications rather than the education incentive title from the old chart. And then same thing, if somebody loses a certification, then they understand they have to report it and everything. Their pay is adjusted accordingly.
And that adjustment, so say I get a certification mid-year, it doesn't adjust till the October?
No, if you obtain it, you would get the certification like you do now. So if you get instructor one, for example, you're gonna get paid your first full pay period.
So it adjusts within
That-
the structure,
yeah.
within the thing?
No, the October one is for experience.
Okay.
You know, your anniversary date's today, his is next month.
Yeah, I get what you're
It'll drive everyone's trying to
Yeah, I get that.
hit every one of those on everybody's anniversary date,
Okay.
so. So take this down to the last page. The strikeouts on the last page, all comes in with the first one, paper, article. To implement the components of this article. Any company officer titled, so that's language we did when we went from captain 2 to captain.
Yes.
And I kept it in there to memorialize the fact that we have a captain that's compensated at a lieutenant's rate.
Oh, right.
Okay,
Mhm.
so, and then I just added the last few words just to kind of clear it up. Promoted captains as of the date of ratification will be retitled as captains and compensated at the captain rate, which they are already, so.
Yeah, I'd say we don't, I don't think we need that, the promoted captain twos.
Mhm.
I don't think we need that in there. I mean, the one with the company officer title captain, because we do have one.
Well, leaving it in there makes it clear that those two folks will be compensated as captains.
What he's saying is once the process is completed, then it can go away. So the next contract, then
Right.
it'll be null and void, right?
It's not, no, it's not that. We did this last contract, but it's just to be clear that we have one captain that's compensated as a lieutenant, because he did not promote to captain 2. He had that title as we were sunsetting that position. So he's effectively a lieutenant, but retained his captain title. I don't want to muddy the waters to say, okay, now we're going to compensate you as a captain. But for 3 years, he's been compensated as a lieutenant. And he should continue to be compensated as a lieutenant, so.
Okay.
So, and then the next two I struck because I believe they're just related to old language. Because we don't have the steps.
Right.
Okay. And that was effective for the old contract. So that is wages.
All right.
Right.
Let's look at it. When are you gonna fit in?
The copy's not nearly, it isn't.
Oh, the copy was half the page.
You have the spreadsheet already?
It's really not, it looks overwhelming, but it's really not.
It's not.
Once you
It's
get
not,
into it.
you can put it into,
It's valuing an employee,
It's
so
the
there's.
reason why he's the secretary treasurer.
Exactly. There's a rate for each rank, and then
Yeah.
it builds on it based on experience, and it's looking back and it's taking everybody's experience from when they started. So,
We have copies of these, please.
yes. Yeah.
I don't know if you wanna go off record or we're done.
Yeah, we can do that. Anything else before we go off record?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, our next meeting is the 24th?
24th.
Of 900, yet again? Okay.
We just came back.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on duty that shift.
Okay.
I have to look.
it's on your calendar.
It is in
Yeah.
Where did I put that up?
Yeah.
Years ago.
Okay.
My secretary put it
Then I'm
in the
gonna
calendar
go,
for me.
I'm gonna go off the record.